Bernard, the executioner Hopkins. Jermain, bad intentions, Pale.
You have any questions? Obey my commands. Do you want to touch gloves? Okay, don't.
Yeah.
Let's go to work.
All right.
Fight just as well with or without Boyd because he's been doing it for so long, you know? I mean, Bernard's 40 years old. He's going to change him at this point in his career.
Hopkins tried an early attack. Taylor countered it with some hard punches in the corner. J-Nady warned.
He wants to see blood, but he cannot go in and make a crazy mistake early.
Hopkins got in a little right hand in close quarters there. Bernard still seems to want to pace himself. Now he fires a right over the top, and Taylor comes back with several body punches. Even more reluctant to risk something now as the result of what he experienced in the last 4 rounds of the first fight.
Bernard Hopkins to make a mistake.
They trade left hooks.
Of Hopkins lunging in and being off balance.
At close range, Taylor gets in a couple body shots, so does Bernard.
Let Taylor wear down a little bit, then he'll engage more.
Taylor threatening Hopkins and getting in a little right hand after missing, but getting him to the ropes.
Here we saw earlier, Hopkins just kind of fell off balance. They traded left hooks, but I don't think nothing landed flush. Then right here you saw Taylor miss him with a straight right hand, and he backed back into the ropes. But the crowd just wants to...
Harold Letterman has divided the first 2 rounds between the fighters.
Something to prove here more so than Bernard Hopkins, so he'll be forced to push the issue shortly.
Hopkins getting a little more aggressive. The 3rd round. Hopkins beginning to pick his spots just a little bit more. Nervous and ultimately exhausted from his own nerves. And Taylor is starting to look much more comfortable throwing his jab. He's still not landing it with great consistency. Gets in a little left hook there as Hopkins comes in. Several rounds in the first fight. When simply by being more active, not necessarily by being effective, Taylor was able to persuade the judges that he was winning.
You gotta watch it close, guys, and that's all there is to it.
A jab in the fight. Significant?
Those are definitely not as long as Jermain. We saw that in the Taylor tape. And
landed a jab there that gave him a chance to try an overhand right. He almost hit Hopkins on the back of the head there. Now Hopkins finally lands a jab flush on the nose.
Jermain, you're holding.
The 2nd time in a row.
And there's a couple of good jabs by Taylor. So the fight is beginning to assume a very similar pattern to the first time around. Taylor more active in the first, considerably more frequency than the first time around. In this round, he's landed 6 out of 16 jabs.
about the timing in the space. Good shot.
There's a straight right hand by Hopkins, his best punch of the fight so far. Taylor a little uncertain of himself as Hopkins rips him with a body shot. Bernard Hopkins. And he lands a left hook. He needs to change the angle. Jab lands again for Taylor. Getting off quick punches inside that have their effect.
And what I like about Bernard Hopkins right now is that
straight right hand lands for Taylor and backs Hopkins off in the first fight.
No.
Taylor suddenly looking much more confident, even though Hopkins had a good minute in this round. They both try to steal it in the closing seconds. Our judge, Harold Letterman, had given the three preceding rounds to Taylor. Letterman gave that round to Taylor, too, just as was the case in the first fight.
He's so anxious and he's trying so hard to punch so hard until it's much easier for Bernard Hopkins to see the punches coming.
Hopkins gets in a right and a left after Taylor clocked him to the left.
Man has a cut on the ridge of his nose from that right hand.
Well, he has a spot of blood on the ridge of his nose, and he stops Hopkins in his track with a jab.
And that's what Hopkins was waiting for.
Gets Hopkins off balance against the ropes. Expected that could happen. Tactical fight, the kind of fight Hopkins has been winning routinely for years throughout his career. But Jermain Taylor is a far better athlete than most of the guys Hopkins erased in his career.
An athlete, but his skill level still has a long ways to go.
Sure. Technically, there's no way he's as good as Bernard.
Here you see Bernard Hopkins land a beautiful left hook to the right behind the ear of Jermain Taylor. Then Jermain Taylor comes back with one of those great jabs of his own.
Landed 11 out of 22. 16 to 39 punches against Bernard Hopkins. We're into the 7th, Harold. How do you have it?
Okay, Jim. 5 rounds to 1, 59, 55. Bernard Hopkins, when he throws a left jab, even that right hand, after the punch.
I have it a much closer fight. I have it 3 rounds to...
Harold, the reason he's ducking after the punches is because he's looking for a counter punch by Jermain Taylor. So he's trying to keep his chin down after he throws a big punch. He's the stronger man, but I'd rather take wisdom over power any day.
Good left hook by Hopkins. Looking at Taylor when he says you're doing the holding. Straight right hand lands for Hopkins quick.
Pretty quickly here to throw Hopkins off because Hopkins is using his head and beginning to get to Jermain more frequently, and I don't think that's good for Jermain Taylor. He seems more fluent right now. He seems to be more in the fight than Taylor is right now, and I think Hopkins moving, you see his hands up and down, his head moving a little left, a little right, then he sneaks in with the straight right hand. Jermain Taylor doesn't have a chance to move, and you see Hopkins keeping that head down.
Like he needed a good round to come back after Taylor had a big one in the 6th. Certainly fulfilled his promise to start earlier.
Well, he certainly hasn't dug himself a hole.
Big right hand by Hopkins lands, and Taylor retaliates with a right hand of his own.
You're holding, Jermain. You're holding, Jermain.
Taylor got a couple jabs in and slipped Hopkins' jab. Now Jane 80 says Jermain's holding.
Patient and very anxious to land something.
That was is that because of the pressure of fighting Bernard? 3 jabs for Taylor, 4 jabs for Taylor. Good left hook, Taylor.
Bernard Hopkins.
Good left hook by Hopkins. Hopkins insisted several times after the last fight. I had him out on his feet. Taylor, for his part, said, what in the world is he talking about?
Here at the end of the round, you see Taylor come in behind that jab and land a beautiful straight right hand on Bernard Hopkins, but it didn't seem to have much effect on Bernard because Bernard came up.
It's a punch that travels 6 inches that might hurt you.
This is the point. If you look,
Stop!
Very confidently right now. Hard right hand by Taylor for holding. Hopkins is virtually without a warning in the fight. That's an upset. Little left hook landed for Hopkins after he missed big with the right. But every once in a while, Taylor erupts and lands a 1-2. Maybe Hopkins with a right hand.
well, I think he is frustrated, but...
Hard right hand by Hopkins.
See, Bernard Hopkins has the kid waiting on him. He throws 2 short jabs followed by a beautiful right hand. I think that's the best punch he's landed this fight.
Harold, how do you have it coming to the 10?
He lands, I think he's doing more damage. And
Momentum is on Bernard Hopkins' side.
He landed a quick little right hand there. Tries to come back with another.
Fighting a very small fight, making the younger guy fight his.
Straight right hand. Right hand lands for Hopkins. Beat Hopkins to the punch and go back to landing his jab. Just as was the case in the first fight, he seemed to be fighting his best yet against Hopkins, landing his jab. Bernard Hopkins is right hand landed for Taylor. And another one. His 2 best punches in a while. And he rips Hopkins with a jab. Taylor's off to a great start in round 11. Big left hook. Maybe the best punch of the fight for Taylor.
Fight is still in the balance.
Again, Taylor missing over the top.
Being more relaxed is into the late stages of the fight. Hopkins has won enough middle rounds.
Dwayne Ford famously gave the 9th, 10th, and 11th to Hopkins. Big left hook for Hopkins. Drives Taylor back.
Bernard Hopkins caught him holding and landing a big
Now
shot.
Taylor feels like he needs to reinforce the statement he made earlier. And another left hook. CompuBox numbers in the 11th round were even, but Taylor landed clearly the better combination. Simmons scorecard, barring a knockout. Hopkins has 1 12th round knockout in his career, most swollen shut. That's from Hopkins' right hands and maybe from a butt or 2.
And that hook might have hurt Taylor just then by Hopkins.
2 months by Hopkins' political campaign. Big right hand for Taylor. The kid is showing guts. Another right hand for Taylor. chases Hopkins into the rope. Last 7 rounds. Straight right hand lands.
Taylor, very bad. If you catch him with it again, don't be surprised if Taylor doesn't go down.
Taylor wobbles. Been a knockdown in the fight. Is it the future or the past? Is it youth or age?
Because a person that truly understands boxing can understand this
Good
entire
combination for Taylor. 4 punches landed in that exchange. He got Hopkins with the right hand.
No.
The last big statement of the fight was made by the champion.
All 3 judges, Dave Moretti, Chuck Jampa, and Patricia Marsh-Jarman, scored the bout identically, 115 to 113, all to the winner by unanimous decision, and still undisputed middleweight champion of the world, Jermain. Bad Intentions.